We must maintain a nonpartisan support for Israel. We must maintain non-ideological support for Israel. As our congresspeople told us, this must remain an issue that doesn't divide Republicans and Democrats, that doesn't divide liberals and conservatives. We liberals have a lot of work to do, and I do it every single day. I work on my liberal friends. Conservatives have to work on their conservative friends. We have to keep Israel at the forefront of what people around the world support. So I want to end with just one proposal. I want to propose that perhaps this year or next year, we have a conference and produce a book on the case for Israel's legitimacy, making the positive affirmative case that I know our speakers will talk about and that I've spoken about and that I speak about on college campuses. We must remember that our greatest enemy is emet, truth, veritas. We have nothing to fear from the facts coming out. We must always remember that the truth will serve our cause. So go out, be soldiers for democracy, be soldiers for truth, be soldiers for the legitimacy of Israel, and may you go from strength to strength.
Thank you, Alan, for those stirring words and call to combat. Natan?
Let me start from personal remark. More than 30 years ago, I was on the trial, and I had no lawyer because I couldn't have a lawyer of my choice, so I preferred to defend myself. What I didn't know then, that two young law professors in the West are actively becoming my lawyers and building my case and preparing my defense, and they were Irving Kotler and Alan Dershowitz. So finally, 30 years after, I finally have an opportunity to appear together with my lawyers. So I feel myself very protected. Now, dear friends, all the time we are speaking about what this delegitimization, demonization campaign does to the state of Israel. But I want to say a few words what it does to young generation of Jews, how it distances them, how it weakens them, how it changes them, and that is the aim of our enemies. Because Israel can be only as strong the solidarity of Jewish people and support of Jewish people to Israel. And here, we have today, in fact, in 2003, on the request of Ariel Sharon, I dealt with the question of combating anti-Semitism. And after visiting the first 10 universities, then I visited 70 universities, after hearing from one Jew that for him as a liberal Jew, it's better to live in the world where Israel doesn't exist, from the other Jew from Harvard that for her, she wants very much to sign a letter support of Israel, but she knows it will be not liked by her 3 professors, and as a result, her grades will be worse, and she decided to wait for a few years and to be silent. And another guy who said that when he was speaking on behalf of Israel, he lost all his friends, so now he's dealing with green technology, and everybody loves him, and he preferred for a few years to stop all his involvement. Then I came in to say, Terry Sharon, I believe our most important battlefield is the campuses in the United States of America, and I wrote an article, Visit to the Occupied Territories. And I meant campuses. I have to say, since then, many things changed, and we, Jewish people, sent a lot of troops on these occupied territories. And Stand With Us is here as a great organization, and AIPAC is doing a great job, and federations, and Caravan for Democracy. Now Jewish Agency mobilized itself in the last year. We brought it very much our activity. Maybe I'll say a few words after this. Having said all this, situation is extremely difficult. Recently, Frank Lantz made a very interesting research. He was organizing focus groups in the universities, and then I saw the tapes from these focus groups. There are a big group of Jews and non-Jews he provokes debate about Middle East. Very quickly it comes to demonizing Israel in the most awful way, and Jews are silent. Then he asks only the Jews to stay. He asks these students, what you think about Middle East? And they start saying very good things about Israel and how they disagree with many things. And he's asking, so why you were silent? And then it is almost embarrassing to see it on the tapes, how one of the very good Jewish boys and girls are embarrassed but say, look, we as Jews, we are viewed as those who are not objective. That's why we have to speak only if you know the facts exactly, as we are absolutely sure, and so on and so on and so on. And it is frightening to see how not in the Soviet Union, but in the American campuses, young Jews are becoming double thinkers, silent majority. You know, under every dictatorship, I wrote about it in my book, The Case for Democracy, you have true believers in the ideology of this dictatorship, and then their number is smaller and smaller and smaller. You have dissidents, those who dare to speak against regime, they're also a very small group. And you have majority double thinkers who know that all this is lies, but they're afraid to speak. So when it is under dictatorship, they're afraid to speak. There is Gulag, there is KGB, there are many other things. When our Jewish boys and girls on the universities are becoming double thinkers, they feel that for their career, for their success, for their respect in the society, it's better for them not to stand open and loudly. So for Israel, that is big success of our enemies. Having said all this, thanks God, American campus, it's not Soviet Union. There, the Soviet Union, in order to move from double think to dissent, you must really be ready to risk your life. And it is happening. How revolutions are happening, when suddenly people cannot wait anymore, and they have example of dissidents, and they feel support of the world, and they go ahead and cross this line between doublethink and dissent. I have to say, I saw it many times in the universities. The moment there is even a small group of young Jews who are ready to stand up, who know how to debate, who know the facts about which Alan was saying, about which we are saying all the time, the real facts about human rights, about democracy and freedom, and so on. And the moment they speak publicly about it, the situation is changing. It's changing, first of all, among Jews. And that is our target. The Jews should not be ashamed, that should be proud of their association with Israel. And so that... And that is our aim. I can say proudly that since I came to the Jewish Agency, we broadened greatly our involvement. At this moment, we have a special program, Israeli Fellows on campuses. At this moment, we are already on 40 campuses, and we are going to be on 100. I want that every campus where there is 1,000 Jewish students or more, we will be there. And the aim of these fellows who are after the army, after their first degree, who know how to speak, who know the facts, the aim is to bring as much of Israel as possible to the campus, as many Jewish students as possible to Israel, but the most important, to build this nucleus of group of proud Jews who are ready to speak, who are ready to respond, and the moment it happens, our enemies are speechless. And I want now, very briefly, to remind, in order we will be strong and powerful, we should not be discouraged by permanent accusation that we are against legitimate criticism of Israel, that we are using anti-Semitism only to stop our political opponents. There is a lot of most primitive anti-Semitism in the campaign against Israel. Many years ago, I proposed 3D principle, which I was happy to see that Stand With Us took it as their laws of nature. And the idea was very simple, that if you see that the same principles which were used against Jews by anti-Semites, demonization, delegitimization, double standard, are used against Israel, it is anti-Semitism. And it is so simple, but nevertheless, we are shy to recognize it. demonization of Jew was the most elementary thing of anti-Semites. It was early Christianity about Jews drinking blood, and it kept going to my days in the Soviet Union, in the Middle Europe. And as Sartre once said, anti-Semite knows the closest thing to evil, to Satan, is Jew. Now, nobody will permit himself to demonize Jew in the same way. But when a respectable person comes to Israel and says, I visited Palestinian camps, it is not Auschwitz today. And everybody who knows a Palestinian camp knows it is a bad thing, and we can debate why Palestinians are in the camps and who has to be blamed, but what it has to do with Auschwitz. And then you can see as in every university, professor who has nothing to do with politics, he speaks about biology, and suddenly he says, and you know how it happens in nature that those who were aggressors become victims? We can see in today's politics. You see, Jews were in concentration camps, and now they build concentration camps by themselves. It happened today in the university by a respectable professor. She was not even thinking for a moment that that is anti-Semitism. But if you think, it is absolutely the same demonization of Jews. Like some of my friends, so-called in the Soviet Union, today were saying, of course, we know that you are not drinking blood. But probably a few hundred years ago, some of your relatives did do it. So, because it was automatically believed. So, in the same way, professor or some student in the university says, well, of course, but it's known that today you are Nazis to Palestinians. And that's something that has to be called immediately, without even hesitation, anti-Semitism. The same here, the congressman was speaking very good about double standards of United Nations and the others. Look, Jews, it was clear double standard. I will say that if you take the history of Russia, there are hundreds of laws about Jews who have no right, who have different laws, simply different laws about taxes, about where they can live, where they can study. So it was clear double standard. And then Solzhenitsyn wrote a book where he tries to explain the reason that there were some historical reasons he tries to defend. You know, it can be explained. Still, it's clear that there's double standard. I was with the commissioner, with your colleague from Canada. She was commissioner on human rights in Europe. What's her name? Louise, yeah. So, and I asked you how you can accept that your committee has such a clear double standard when Israel is condemned again and again and again, and Russia is not condemned for Chechnya. There is no Goldstone report on Chechnya. And she said, well, it's terrible, but what I can do? They agree that Russians promised not to attack, to criticize what is happening in Sudan, and Arab countries agreed not to criticize Chechnya. So each point can be explained, why it happened so that the double standard only applied to Israel. No, but that's exactly how to explain double standard in Russian laws. It is double standard. We should not even be hesitant for a moment to say to United Nations that their policy is anti-Semitic, because it's absolutely the same.